So Neil, hello again. It was only yesterday we were recording a podcast together. I know these things go out with like a week's interval, but yeah, yesterday we did a podcast.
We did,
You're
yep.
always turning up instead of Gwilym.
I'm sorry I'm not Gwilym. Sorry to
I
disappoint
know.
everybody.
It disappoints me actually, because obviously me and Gwilym have like a long-standing relationship. Feels a little bit like I'm cheating on him.
What can I say? I'm worried I might get podcast burnout. I'm on so much at the moment.
Anything interesting happening in your world?
Always pretty interesting things happening in SEPA. We've had a flurry of international visitors recently. Yep, gearing up for our colleagues from America to come over in the next couple of months. So that's going to be exciting.
And I think whilst we're recording this podcast, there's a planning meeting for the Canadians to come over as well.
There is. That's true.
Yeah, so it's I was just saying I had a really exciting conversation with the auditor this morning because it's the start of audit process.
Is that possible? Can you have
Well,
exciting conversations with the auditors?
well, I can because I can make any conversation exciting, I think. And she asked about the kind of what it's like being back in the world post pandemic, and I did say it's great because we're back to people visiting us in person. That's which is great. So we've Japanese recently, the Koreans, Americans lined up, Canadians. Gwilym and I are off out to Atlanta to the winter, so it's all exciting on the world stage.
Yeah, it's great.
Lee Davis and Gwilym Roberts are the two IPs in the pod, and you are listening to a podcast on intellectual property, brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys.
But rather than looking at kind of big global stuff, we're going to do a podcast today about the Informals, which is our student community. And we've got two of the Informals with us to tell us about the work that they do. And I'm really excited, actually, because there's always the great sort of mystery to me was the Informals and why they were called the Informals and who they are and what they do. And I think I understand it now, but I might learn something new. Who knows? Should we bring them on?
We should.
Matilda, let's go to you first, shall we? Tell us a bit about yourself. Who are you? What are you doing here?
Hi, so I'm Matilda. I'm the Inclusivity Officer at the Informals Committee, and I'm also on the Wellbeing team. And I'm a trainee patent attorney at Marks and Clark.
And how long you been there?
So I've only been here a year and a half now. Time's flown by. It's been great, but I've been working as a trainee for 3 years now. Currently
Cool.
going through preparing for finals, so not looking forward to
that. How did you find out about the profession? What was the spark? What brought you in?
That is a really funny story, actually. My geography teacher brought it up, and we were doing a case study on GSK, and he went on some rant about how terrible patents were for the world and stuff. And honestly, that kind of ignited. I was like, you know what, that actually sounds like a really fun job. And started looking into it some more. Was always interested in sciences, but didn't want to work in a lab for the rest of my life. So this felt like the natural route to go down.
And patents aren't terrible, are they?
No, of course not. They promote innovation. It's the way of the world, and my geography teacher's got to get on board.
Don't get me started on geography teachers. I mean, my experience was many, many years ago, and I never had a good relationship with my geography teacher. But that was usually because he was throwing things at me. Actually, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashley Tambe. I work at Murgatroyds. I've been a trainee for around 2.5 years now, and I'm the honorary secretary of the SEPA Informals, which is lots of fun. So I guess I do a bit of everything in the committee.
Yeah, we'll find out about that in a moment. Tell us how you got into the profession.
I got into the profession. How did I get into the profession? I think it was a combination of factors. For starters, I had the unusual route of knowing about patents before joining, because a lot of people find out just before they join. But my dad filed a patent application when I was little.
Oh, wow.
Not sure how the patent application went, but he filed a patent application when I was little. So I was vaguely aware of it back then. I got to university, I studied an engineering degree, and I started taking law modules because one needs to change from engineering from time to time. The law module was very interesting, and because I already knew about patents and I found the law module so fun, I started applying for patent attorney roles, and here I am.
Amazing. And how are you finding it?
Oh, I love it so much. I feel like it perfectly fits the nerdy brain I have. No 2 days are the same. It's oddly creative because you have to be somewhat creative with things you're arguing with people. You're learning about new technology every day. Yeah, it's lots of fun.
I mean, for me, it's I mean, I've been in CIPA. I'm in my 13th year, so obviously I know far more about patents and the world of patent attorneys than when I joined. But I'm not a patent attorney. I am a kind of a bit of an engineer, but that's about my limit. And what I find fascinating is that sort of like dual professional identity that patent attorneys enjoy. So you are by first profession a scientist, an engineer, a technologist, and then by second profession an IP lawyer. And they are. I mean, the law and science and technology are quite far apart, aren't they, in terms of the way people might think about them? And for those to come together in this sort of patent attorney profession, I think is quite fascinating for me. So where should we start? So you said you're the honorary secretary. Let's start with Ashley. You said you're the honorary, so you're the boss, aren't you? You're the boss of the Informals. That's what the honorary secretary is. But you only get to be boss for a year. How does that feel?
How does it feel to only be boss for a year? Well, on a technicality, I'm actually boss for 1 year and 3 months. Because one of my first acts as honorary secretary was changing the dates that the terms move over from September to January. So I get to cling on to power for a tiny bit more.
That's a good move. That makes sense. Yeah, so that brings it in line with other natural years, like the CIPA membership year, for example, and yeah.
Yeah, it does bring it in line. I think that was the main reason. But yes, being in charge for a year, it's nice. I think this was also a good time in my traineeing to take on the role. I'm sure workload will only go up more next year.
Sure.
So now's a good time to be able to put my all into both revising for exams and the role.
So have you both got your finals this year?
Yeah, I've got some finals coming up. I haven't decided what I'm gonna sit yet. Definitely the legal module, and I'm thinking of sitting infringement as well, but I know that's the tough one, so we'll see. I haven't decided yet.
I did my finals in September. I got my results a week ago. I passed FD4, which is the infringement and validity
well
one.
Congratulations.
A very, very scrapey pass, I must say.
Pass is a pass.
But yes, I was very, very happy to pass it because for each paper you sit for that exam, you have to essentially block out an entire day, which means a lot of your holidays disappear into the abyss. So I'm glad I don't have to do that again. And next year I'll do the law one.
And how have the Informals supported you?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of lectures that we run. So there's advanced lectures for more substantive topics that aren't just centered around law, but also about how to develop yourself as an attorney. And then there's core lectures that we call foundation lectures that are on the basics, quotation marks, of IP law. So things like patentability, and all that stuff. So every once in a while, I'll tune into one of those lectures to refresh my memory. And it's been great help. I think I really, really valued it when I first joined, especially because I was so overwhelmed with all the terms, so many abbreviated words to wrap my head around. But yeah, the Informals has been very, very helpful, and we're glad it's there.
So Matilda, is this your first exposure to the Informals? Is this the first time you got involved in the kind of the organising sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I joined up November. I joined the team. And I had a couple of friends that had joined, and the inclusivity role was still open. And myself I've always been like the BAME community, being because I'm Persian. And so it felt like a natural role that I'd be able to sort of, personally relate to and hope that I can, assist in, I suppose. I think, diversity and inclusion are two really important things in the workplace, because I'm sure ultimately everyone wants to walk into a room and see more faces like their own, feel like they belong. Yeah. And yeah, that's something I'm really interested in helping out.
And what sorts of things do the Informals do around that? What's the gig? So
we've got a few things in the works, which I'm hoping will sort of, stay tuned, look out for.
Oh, come on, give us an inside track. What's happening?
Okay, so one thing I'm got in the works is to set up some self-care sessions for trainees in the lead up to exams. So I'm hoping that by summer I'm working with IP Inclusive and Jonathan's Voice to set up some self-care sessions. I mean, I've recently became a mental health first aid trainer. Very kindly, Marks and Clark trained me up for that because they know it's something that us in the informals are really interested in. The mental health of trainees has always been a hot topic. You know, the stress that you go through in balancing your workload and your exams, and the exams are really grueling. So it's important to be able to take care of yourself through that. And I think, for example, my favorite thing to do is go swimming, and that really gives me a sense of relaxation. But as soon as I'm stressed, it's the first thing to go out the window because you're prioritizing work and everything else. So I think what we want to do with IP Inclusive is make sure that people are prioritizing taking care of themselves when they're stressed, basically. So we're hoping that we can encourage that in the summer. We're also setting up, I think you guys have already met Sophie and Joel, but we're three of us are setting up IP Survival Guide, which is the podcast by trainees for trainees. And mostly we really want to bring on guests and ask them questions from a trainee perspective and really simplify the law, make it digestible. So stay tuned whilst we get that going.
So are you mainly going to be bringing on other trainees as guests, or are you going to sort of get others in, sort of examiners maybe? And
I think we're really hoping to do a bit of both. Definitely want to bring on some professionals that we can get some invaluable advice from. We also want to talk about sort of important issues that trainees are going through. We're happy to, we want to set up a sort of column where you can write in your questions and we could, prepare targeted answers for the trainees. Let me think, what else are we doing?
that sounds like quite a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a bit. I think last summer I worked.
Especially as you do all of this voluntarily.
Yeah, it's a lot to take.
How'd you find time for it, Matilda? How'd you find time?
I don't know, but when you're interested in something, you make the time, don't you? I mean, you both as well. You must be so busy, but you make the time to record these episodes.
This is true. Yeah, but I love the podcast. It's not something that I would ever think is a kind of an encumbrance on my time.
Exactly. It doesn't feel like work, so you're enjoying it. And I think that's I work really closely with Sophie and the wellbeing team, and we love doing what we can. We've also, I should probably say this actually, we've got the Yellow Sheet blog has got a page on it for the mental health wellbeing team. And if people have any struggles, then we do have a safe space where people can write in if they need to share their struggles and need further support, then it is there.
Perfect.
Great to hear.
So actually, kind of coming back to you and what you do, I'm conscious that we just assume that everybody knows why the informals are called the informals. Is it worth trying to explain if indeed you know why the informals are called the informals?
That was one of the first questions I had when I joined. I think the informals is a very informal name for a committee. I think it's just tradition. From what I've asked, although I can probably bring this up the next time. There's a meeting once per year between all the past honorary secretaries of the informals. So I should probably just seek the wisest looking one and see why we have this name in the first place. But what I do know is that the informals weren't always officially a part of SEPA. So it was kind of like an independent student organization. And the first intention when they were founded was just to organize lectures. Because, as we all know, exams in this profession can be very draining in so many ways. So often trainees would band together and organize lectures between themselves. And I think someone told me they used to mail cassettes around the UK.
That's right, they did, yeah, around the country. I'm surprised you even know what a cassette is, actually.
I'm not that young, but yes, I've not seen a cassette in a very long time. But they used to mail cassettes around the countries to trainees that weren't based in London, so they could listen to recordings and essentially have more of a chance of passing the exams. And now we've kind of kept it for almost sentimental reasons.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Yeah, it's a unique name. I've noticed a lot of professions have an equivalent of a student body. And they're called boring things like the student body.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
being called the informals,
young accountants.
yes, young accountants, young engineers, all that stuff. But the informals is a nice twist.
Yeah, no, I quite like the history. Yeah, my understanding of it is exactly the same as yours. It was an attempt decades ago by students to come together, to band together, but self-help, organise lectures. And I always remember, so when I pitched up to SEPA in 2012, it was the one thing I really struggled to get my head around. There's this bunch of students, we call them the informals, but they're left to their own devices and we don't really give them any support. We used to provide the venue for the lectures to take place, and we used to provide a little bit of technology for booking tutorials online, but that was about the extent of it. And then we brought the informals in-house. I think the world started to change probably about 7 or 8 years ago, when liability started to become a much bigger consideration. So the informals would organise events, but had no insurance and couldn't get insurance to kind of cover the potential liabilities for those. And I think we just had a sensible conversation that was like, well, if the informals becomes a part of Big SEPA, then all of those liabilities are taken care of. But what we don't want to do is dilute that unique identity. So we still want the informals to have its historic structure, the honorary secretary role, the committee role. It's a very different committee to any other committee in SEPA, in that largely it's left to its own devices and it's entirely self-organising. So I think hopefully we've kept all of the good things about the informality of the informals, but just added a little bit of kind of organisational and organisational structure into the background to make all of that work. So what do you need from students, from SEPA, for the informals to kind of grow and thrive and continue to be a success? What are your big shout outs?
I mean, at the start of the year, the biggest need is always new volunteers. There's always I'd say roughly 1/3 of the committee members will move on to better things, aka they will have passed their exams, and the informals is centered towards people who are still trainees, so they need replacing. There's also people who want to change roles, so their older roles will need replacing, and simply people who've done it for the year and they want to do something else. So that's always the biggest need at the start of the year, to replace all the outgoing positions.
Also, just sorry to add to that, Ashley, we're hoping to set up a fundraiser in the summer for Jonathan's Voice. So we are looking for volunteers.
Oh.
If anyone listening to this would like to sign up, please pop us an email.
Do you know how you can do the fundraising yet? Have you got plans?
It's very much in the works again. I think we're open to ideas. If people have suggestions, please let us know. Currently, we're thinking of doing a bake sale where everyone in their individual offices on the same day bakes a bunch of cakes and we sell them. But to create a sense of unity, we want to do it across the UK on the same day. So yeah, stay tuned.
One of the things that struck me was one of the big successes we had during lockdown was the pub quiz online. Yeah. And if you wanted to do something like that, or Taskmaster, I don't know if we're allowed to actually use the Taskmaster brand. We could call it something else. But I'd be more than happy to kind of take the lead and set up online quiz or online Taskmaster or something like that, maybe where people just make a donation to come and play, and very happy to do something like that if that was if that helped.
That would be amazingly. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We should set something up like that up. I mean, we did a lot of the pub quizzes as well as socials in the informals, and they were really popular. We did I think we've done 3 or 4 quizzes now that people have turned up to. So yeah, they're really popular. We should absolutely set that up.
Yeah. So, but if you want to do it off your own back, feel free to obviously do it. But if you'd like me to take a lead and sort something out, very happy to do that. Great,
thank you, Lee.
Yeah, I was going to say the pub quiz is one of our most anticipated events. They seem to we have like a limit of 50 or so people, and they sell out so quickly. It's like people are camping at their phones waiting for a pub quiz announcement. So I don't know what draws trainees in this profession to pub quizzes in particular, but we all seem to love them.
It's the free dominoes. That's usually provided.
That would be an attraction. Go on, Neil. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it was just that, Ashley, you dropped the tantalising nugget at the start of this conversation about your dad filing a patent, and then we didn't ask you any more about it. So what's the story there?
Well, it depends. What more do you want to know? Oh, I mean, I was very little. I've not looked at the pattern in a very long time, and I don't think it proceeded to grants, but I am pretty sure it was towards a flying car.
What?
I know,
Cheeky, cheeky,
I know,
bang,
very
bang.
fancy. Yeah, my dad was an engineer, so I clearly followed his nerdy footsteps. Um, yeah, I remember when I was very, very little, I'd see him doing all these drawings downstairs, and I'd go and like peek over his shoulder, like, "Ooh, what's that?" So that probably started my that probably is the reason, one of the main reasons why I decided to do an engineering degree. But yeah, I'd always see him drawing and he'd always have so much fun. He wasn't even, this was also a side hobby for him. So he'd do it in his free time and I'd be like, oh, that looks cool. And he would talk to me about all the nuts and bolts. And yeah, I think one of these days I might look it up and see what happened to it. But yeah, the one I know was towards some type of car that flew in a way that I cannot tell you right now. And there was another one, but I need to ask my mum how that went and what that was directed to.
Amazing. We've actually got a flying car in one of the SEPA animations in our What is a Patent, sort of demystifying patents for the public. So we've got a flying car at the end of that.
Wouldn't it be extraordinary if it were the same one?
I wish. One of these days I'll be working in my office and I'll get one of my dad's disclosures of prior art.
Well, so where should we go next? Any events coming up that people need to know about? Any things on the horizon? There's a bit of a student conference coming up, isn't there? I know that because I'm there.
There is actually. It's going to be the first time I've ever hosted an event before. Well, co-hosted.
You're gonna do all the work, mate.
Okay, well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I've never done one before. I am confident in general, but it's the difference between saying you're confident and actually having to speak in front of over 100 people have signed up so far. So that will be an interesting experience. I don't know how the logistical part of it will go when you're co-hosting with someone, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's a student conference we started a few years ago. I think it was originally an idea by one of the past honorary secretaries. And then SEPA decided to help with it, and now we just do it as a joint collaboration because we are one of the same.
Now it's one of our big events, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of our big events. We have so many attendees. I remember the first year I attended, I think we had 40 or 50 people, and now the last time I checked, there were over 120.
Yeah, I think we're nudging 150 now for the Birmingham conference.
Oh my gosh! So yeah, that's
no pressure, no pressure.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. We have a range of speakers on all types of topics, from general well-being to how the exams will be changing, because there's a change to exams that's going to take place from next year. And also some talks on, I think, client care and how to develop some type of business sense in the profession, because it's not always about work. You also need to have some sort of networking and drawing in business. And yeah, I think, but the part I'm looking to the most is definitely being able to interact with trainees from other firms. Just generally talk to them, because at the end of the day, it is a relatively small profession. So a lot of the people you meet as a trainee, you're going to be friends with them for your entire working career. So it's nice to start these bonds early, grow them, befriend them, go out and do all sorts of things. And just learn from them as well, because you're all going to be at very different firms who might be doing very different things. Last year, I met a trainee at one of the firms that hadn't done a type of task that I do all the time, and I thought all trainees did it. Yeah. But then she also did a task that I didn't even know existed, and it sounded very important to know. But she was like, "Oh yeah, we do that all the time." So I remember the next year, I just waddled up to my line manager and I was like, "Hey, can I do some of this? Because trainees are doing this and I'm not, and I didn't even know what it was." And he was like, "Oh yeah, actually, of course." So yeah, there's definitely lots of opportunities to learn from other trainees and network. So I'm looking forward to it.
And other things on the horizon, we're going to reintroduce the new student induction day, which I think probably fell over during the pandemic, and was always something that new trainees look forward to. Learn a bit about SEPA, learn a bit about the world of IP, meet other students early on in careers. That's quite cool.
Yeah, that one I'm more scared for, because I'm not co-hosting with the ability to depend on you, Lee, for when I get lost for words. That one apparently I'm hosting myself, but I'm hoping with the SEPA conference I'll have stolen enough of your excellent hosting skills to be able to.
The most important thing is your walk-on music. That's the most important.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I will come to WWE music for the conference. Who knows?
So we should body slam me or something like that. I mean,
Ashley,
But-
don't take any tips from Lee on footwear,
Okay.
whatever you do.
I'm planning to wear a suit, so it'll be the first time
oh
I wear
wow!
a suit
I
in a
know.
while.
Does that mean I've got to dress
Yeah.
up?
I got a dress for the occasion. Lee.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll do the same then. Yeah, I'm glad you told me that.
Yeah. But yeah, so the new student induction, it's not new. As you mentioned, it started
Yeah, sorry.
over the
New
pandemic.
as in the students are new, not that the event is new. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's different from the student conference because the student conference is more aimed at established trainees, if that's the saying, whereas the induction day is aimed at people who've just joined the profession in the past year. So people who know very little about the world of IP out there, they're just getting to grips with things. And we thought it's a really good opportunity to, while they're still new to the profession and have so many questions, to bring them all together and foster some sort of a community early on. So again, we have a range of speakers on a range of topics. The types of topics are slightly different though, because we, for example, have a talk in the new induction day about imposter syndrome, which is something a lot of people will struggle with when they first join the profession. I definitely remember being so happy to get my graduate job in the profession when I joined. And then I started in the first week and my first thought was, I can't believe I even made it here. What am I doing? I worked so hard to get here, but I can't even, it takes me 2 days to analyze a piece of work and it's taking other people 3 hours. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? But I quickly learned that these feelings are normal and everyone has these feelings. It's not that you're incompetent. It's just that you're new. I also think it's a big change because everyone in the profession will have gone from some type of STEM degree to a completely new world that they know nothing at all about. So we perhaps sell ourselves short when we don't understand something as quickly as we're used to because we're not all from law backgrounds. Well, I mean, most of us aren't from law backgrounds. So hopefully that will, hopefully the talk on imposter syndrome at the induction day will avoid the new trainees fretting like I used to fret when I joined the profession.
Oh, thank you so much for both coming on. I think we're sort of at that time now where we look to wind the podcast up because we've reached the limits of listeners' attention span. We've learned over the years that that's about 35, 40 minutes. So we try and keep it around there. Normally we end the podcast with some kind of like tangential question, but I've struggled to think about one, Neil. I don't know whether you've got one, but I have got a question I would like to ask Matilda and Ashley, but it's not that much. It's not that much of a tangent. So maybe we'll end up on that one. And if we think of anything we can chip in, perhaps we'll do that. So let's do Matilda first. Apologies, bit of a bout. It's right. It's a question you will be able to answer. So what's the best piece of advice that you could give a new student trainee patent attorney? What would be your kind of big freebie giveaway to them? Ashley, you've got time to think about this.
Off the top of my head, I would say ask 1,000 questions because there's no such thing as stupid questions. And I found myself a lot of the time when I first started out just sitting there kind of just staring at a piece of work and not knowing what direction I had to go into before I finally kind of gathered the strength to just ask my boss and not be afraid to ask silly questions. And he was really receptive. And so that's the only way you're going to learn in this profession. You're not ultimately going to have all the answers because, like Ashley touched on, law is very new to us scientists. So don't be afraid, ask the questions. Your manager will probably respect you more for it.
And that's the thing, is that asking questions can be really hard, but it is actually expected. People do expect you to ask questions, and it's learning that you can do that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I once had a partner say to me that they're more concerned about their trainees that aren't asking questions because then really, are you actually understanding what you're doing?
Yeah, get that entirely. Go on, Ashley, you've had some thinking time. What would be your advice?
My advice would be to save as many templates as you can. Definitely, because obviously I hadn't had I worked for a few months as an engineer, as an internship, but I hadn't really had an office type of job. And one of the things I struggled most with, as silly as this sounds, is writing basic emails. Just the formatting, how to start them, how to round them off, how to structure them, what type of tone to use, whether you needed an executive summary or not. I didn't even know what an executive summary was when I joined the profession.
Why would you?
Yeah, exactly. Why would I? But so one of the things I remember when I joined in the first week, one of the trainees sat me down and they said, literally, every time your boss sends an email that looks even the slightest bit useful, save the email and make a type of format out of it. So take off things that are really specific to the case you're working on and to save the general email. It'll help you so much. And that's just for basic emails. You also need to save templates when it comes to any substantive legal thing that comes out of your boss's mailbox, because it's going to be so useful, and you kind of grow to start typing like your boss, which is normally a good thing because your bosses are obviously they're your boss for a reason. You kind of grow to type like your boss, but you also grow your own style after a while. So definitely, yeah, my advice is save as many templates as you can, save as many emails as you can, and you start to, as my boss says, you start to absorb by osmosis the techniques and how to respond to things, and it helps you a lot.
Cool. So Neil, you've learned stuff in your past. You're a student journalist, weren't you? So
I was.
go on, dig back. It's a long time ago, mate, wasn't it? But go on.
Well, I just think that the Matilda's point about just asking questions and not being embarrassed to ask questions, that is so important. Fortunately, it's, as you say, having trained as a journalist, you have to ask stupid questions all the time and not be worried about appearing stupid. No question is stupid. But yeah, you won't get anywhere as a journalist if you don't ask questions that you're worried
obviously.
about how you might appear by asking them. So yeah,
mine would
really
be
important.
sort of along that line. I would say this probably is, there's like a little bit of irony attached to it in terms of the patent attorney world. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. I know you guys are operating in the real life environment, and mistakes are obviously something that that can't be made, or if they are made, they need to be rectified. But I think I've learned more from mistakes in my life than from necessarily stuff that I've got right, because I've got it right. I might have got it right by accident, or not so much by design. If I've made a mistake, I can put it right, and I've learned from the process of putting it right. So that would be mine. Don't run in terror of getting things wrong occasionally, because almost certainly it's fixable, and you learn from the act of fixing it. That would be mine. So I think we're going to kind of draw it to a close there. Thank you both for coming on. I hope you enjoy it when you listen to it back, and you're not sort of cringing too much about things you've said or that. Neil now requires me to close the podcast in a particular way. So
I do.
So I need to say, Neil, don't I?
He's been very good as well. He hasn't forgotten this once yet since I told him.
That reviews are really important to us. It's one of the ways that we can extend our reach in terms of new and different audiences. So if you've listened to the podcast on whichever platform you listen to it on, and you've enjoyed it, leave us a little review, and that'll just help us grow the podcast. Thanks both.
Thank you both. Bye-bye.
Thank you.